Well, congratulations. You built a block game that's fun to play, but maybe even more importantly, you've now got the knowledge you need to expand the game and take it to the next level. Before we wrap things up, let's add a few more blocks, and I'll also demonstrate how some specialty blocks can be added. Hopefully, this will pique your interest and you'll come up with some ideas of your own. And then we'll wrap it up, and I'll throw a few suggestions out there for some future expansion. So to make things interesting, let's add some new blocks to the game. And we'll do that by going to the Blueprints folder and then going into the Blocks folder. And we will right-click on the BP base block and select Create Child Blueprint class and type in the name of this block, which is going to be a purple block, and that'll be BP underscore purple block. Now we're going to use a different mesh this time, and we'll be using a mesh from the Learning Kit. And there's a bunch of great content in this Learning Kit folder. I encourage you to explore it and make use of it. I think you'll find some great stuff in there that you can add to the game. So we'll go to the block mesh, and we're going to change out the static mesh this time. And we'll type in puzzle to find the puzzle cube A. There's also a sphere, and that makes for a pretty interesting block as well. I'll encourage you again to try that out later. So that is a purple material, and there's other materials which we'll use in just a second. So let's click compile and save on that. And for the next block, instead of making a child class of the BP base block, we'll duplicate the BP underscore purple block. So select the BP underscore purple block, hit Control W, and name this one BP underscore gold block. Now we're only going to change the material, and I'll talk about this in just a second when we open it. So go ahead and open it for editing, and the first thing you'll notice is that we don't get the full blueprint editor, and that trips people up sometimes. To fix that, click on the Open Full Blueprint Editor, and then we'll be back in our familiar surroundings here with the event graph construction script and viewport. Go over to the viewport, select the block mesh, and now we're just going to change the material. So click on the material and select MI Puzzle Cube A2, which is a Puzzle Cube A2, which is a gold material. There's other ways to do this. We could make a single blueprint with several different colors and provide a way to change it. I'll leave that up to you if you want to try that out. In fact, I'm going to throw a bunch of ideas out later that you may try to implement. So click compile and save on the gold block, close that out, and let's duplicate the gold block. We'll select it, press Control W, and we'll call this one the BP underscore blue block, and open that up for editing and click the Open Full Blueprint Editor. Now, because we're duplicating child classes, they've all got the same parent class, which is that BP base block, which is great. We need that. So let's go back over to the block mesh, and we'll change out the material this time for the blue material, or probably more accurately teal. And let's click compile and save, close that, and duplicate that one more time, and we'll do the BP underscore green block and open that up for editing. Open the full blueprint editor, click on the block mesh, and finally select the puzzle cube green color. Come over here to the viewport, make sure it looks good. It does. It looks great. Let's compile and save and close that. Now, you won't be able to use these just yet. They're created, but we haven't added them to the BP block player's all blocks array. So let's go back to the BP block player, open that up, and find the all blocks array, and we'll add 4 more array elements. So I'll click the plus 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and then add those new blocks that we just added. So we'll add the BP underscore purple block, BP underscore gold block, and the blue, and finally the green, which is very close to the grass block. So compile and save that. And that's all you have to do is make a child class of the BP base block, set it up in the way that makes sense for that child class, then come over to the BP block player, select the all blocks array, add the elements by the default values, and then you can come back and click play. And I'm going to roll up to the previous block, so I'm going in reverse order, and those blocks are now available to you to use in your game. So there's our purple, the gold, blue, and finally the green block. Now the next block that I'm going to add isn't actually a cube. So let's go back to the blocks folder, right click on the BP base block, select create child blueprint class, and this will be a BP underscore random flower block. Not only will this block not be a cube, but it will be a random static mesh. So open that up for editing. And then for the block mesh, let's come over to the static mesh settings and type in flower. And we'll select the flower daisy 01. And you'll notice that that's not quite the right size. We'll fix that in just a second. We also want to fix the location of it because it's located in the center of the cube. So X and Y of 50 is good, but for the Z axis, let's put that at 0. And notice that the point of origin of that mesh is down at the base of it. So if we scale it up, which we'll do in just a second, it will grow appropriately. So for that, we're going to make sure that the lock is set on scale. And I'm going to scale this up by 3.55, which I happen to know is a good size for this. And that will make a mesh that has a flower in it. Now, I'm going to do this in a couple steps. We'll come back and edit this in just a minute. I'm going to compile and save this and go over to the BP block player, the all blocks array, click the plus sign, and then find that BP underscore random flower block. And there it is. It's added. Let's try it out and see what it looks like first. Click play. And I'll go backwards. There it is. So now we've got a block that we can use. It's actually flowers. And now what I'm going to do is come back to the BP random flower block and go to the construction script and make it so that whenever these blocks are created, they're random. So to support a random static mesh, what we'll do is we'll drag out the block mesh and we'll drag off of that and we'll type in set static mesh. And there are 3 of these flower daisies available for us to choose from. Let's hook up the construction script from the parent construction script to the set static mesh. And what we'll do is we'll use a select statement to get a random static mesh. So right click and search for select, and we'll use the select node. And to make sure that it's selecting static meshes, we'll hook up the return value to the new mesh pin, and that will turn these options into static meshes. And we need a third one because we're choosing from one of 3 of them. So click the add pin, and then let's search for those daisy static meshes. There it is, flower daisy 01. That's the one we originally had. Flower daisy 02 for the second option. And let me type in daisy, that'll narrow it down faster. Flower daisy 03 for the third option. Now the index is going to be an integer, so it'll be between 0 and 2. And to get that random integer, we'll right click and type in random int, and we're looking for random integer in range. And we'll provide the range of that. So we want values between 0 and 2 inclusive, and that will become the index. So now whenever this construction script runs, i.e. when a random flower block is placed in the level, it will randomly choose one of these meshes. Save that, come back over here to play, and try it out. And I'm getting random meshes. There we go. So I've got 3 random flowers place down, and you can use this for any kind of mesh. I just thought the flowers were a great demonstration of that. And now we have several blocks that we can use, and we are well on our way to having a really fun game with some great options. Once again, congratulations on completing this great project. I hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as I have, and I very much appreciate the time that it's taken you to learn and build this game. I want to throw out a couple of suggestions that you can use to explore further. You can add new materials. You can have the materials change over time. You might want to code some blocks that have certain attributes, like, for example, a block that has lights or a block that explodes after a certain amount of time and takes out blocks around it. You can add animations to the blocks. You can add additional components, such as a skeletal mesh to the block instead of a static mesh, and have an animation take place inside the block. And with that said, I know I mentioned the exploding block. Maybe a saving and loading system would be a really great feature for this game, so that if you build something amazing, you can save it and restore it and show it off later. The system used to build these levels is good for small levels. I think if we started to have many thousands of these static mesh blocks in a level, it would probably slow the game down some. So perhaps looking at other ways to build or represent the blocks, perhaps instanced static meshes might be good. Perhaps there's something I haven't even thought of. So I'm hopeful those of you who've completed the training will share your creations with others and myself. I certainly look forward to hearing about people's successes with this training. Thanks for taking the time to learn and build.